aspire to be a high value man, right? And so if you want to have this aspiration, has to be certain qualifications.
Right.
The same way anybody can play basketball and be happy playing basketball. If you want to make it to the NBA, there's certain type of qualifications you need to make it.
Exactly. And see, people tend to want to have a high value lifestyle. One of the biggest things that I've become synonymous on YouTube is this hashtag show your work. See, the work tells the truth. The suit looks nice, the gift to gab, ha ha ha, but you know what? Shut up, turn off the volume, and look at the work. The work is either here or it's here. Men across the world, men from time immemorial, people respect work. And that's the difference. Talent is wasted every day. Ability is wasted every day. Depending if you're a sports fan, you can go to the NFL, NBA, MLB, and see plenty of people who had possibility and potential but never functioned. But the people who actually put in the work. Now, the other side of it, I make a distinction between you don't have to be white collar, you don't have to be blue collar. It's all in, are you useful? And if you aren't high value, that doesn't mean you're nothing. That just means you're not over here. Look, everybody doesn't want to drive a Ferrari. You may just have a great F-150 truck and love it. That's it.
I love that, and it's so interesting because Gary Vee talks about that a lot. He talks about like you don't have to have these things to be happy.
Right.
And one of the big things, going back to some of the high value conversations, lifestyle. They want the cars, they want the power, they especially want the women, you know, and so what happens is, and I love that. I love how you do it.
Right.
Because you're honest. You're like, if you want these results, you have to put in this work. If you want this output, it requires this input. So you're hearing all these guys complaining, well, I want to have this woman. I want to have this respect. I want to have this kind of power and prestige. And you're like, well, if you want those things, you yourself as a man must have these things. But a lot of people feel as though they should get the benefits without even work.
Right. And you know, one of the things we've done in this country is Gary Vee often talks about, I don't believe in 8th place trophies. You know, I talk about men should be CIA, confident, intelligent, and assertive. To become the best version of yourself, men are just living that way. But the A is the most important part, asserting. You have to do something. You know, this 8th place trophy, everybody gets a prize, there are no losers, it's not real. This is a competitive, capitalistic society, and there are winners and losers. And here's the thing, I always ask guys to understand, know your why, start with why. Good book, by the way, pick it up, Simon Sinek, start with why. And then chart your path. There are people who are making $50,000 living off the grid who are ecstatic. And there are people who are ready to ready to exit this planet earning more and on medication. Know why you want to do it. That's why I think social media has been great for us. I'm glad I lived during this time, but there has to be moderation. You know, having this lifestyle, if you're not that person, can be miserable. And I'll tell you, I lived that personally when I lived in New York City. I went from Oklahoma to New York. There's a big difference in economy of scale and things like that. And the more I realized, you know what, I'm really not, Gordon Gekko. I'm kind of more right here. And I like being right here. I can appreciate Gordon Gekko and that kind of stuff. Look on Wall Street. But knowing yourself and knowing what fits me. So I think one of the things when people start talking about high value is a mindset. If you can actually understand, rate yourself well, always push yourself to be the best, then good things will tend to follow. And that's where the fall down, because most people don't want to continue to push. They want to get to a point where they can put their feet up. How many times they're like, man, I love what you guys are doing. Man, I wish I could do what you guys do. It'd be great to be a content creator, just make videos, get paid for it. I'm like, I think that's all it is, son. We just make a video and get paid for it. Okay. There's a lot of work that goes on behind it. You see about 5% of the cool stuff. And the other 95 is, what did Elon Musk say? Eating glass while staring into the abyss. That's the other part of it that no one sees.
Yeah, I love it. There's this image I saw going around social media about the iceberg. It talks about success is just the tip of the iceberg. And below the surface, 90% of the mass is hard work, perseverance, long nights, suffering.
Brother, I got stories. I got stories.
Just imagine. But one thing that you said that really that I think, to me, is probably the coldest thing you do, but the best thing that you do. And you talked about ranking yourself.
Yes.
I think one of the biggest problems in today is people lack self-awareness.
Yes.
You know, we have people right now, and no due respect if you're a short man, but who are 5'2", wanting to be the starting center for the Lakers.
Yes. You can want it. I get it.
So why do you feel as though a lot of people have but before we begin, to people who don't believe in objective measurements of ranking yourself or evaluating yourself, what would be your defense to the objectivity? Or obviously nothing's perfect, but there is a way of ranking and understanding where you're at in the grand scheme of life.
Where'd you graduate? In high school? Were you valedictorian? Salutatorian was the first loser. I mean, we've always ranked ourselves, and most of us stop ranking ourselves when we stop being managed by others. If you played sports, there was a ranking. You were either a starter or you weren't. Then you had, that was on your team. Then you had to compete in your league, then in your city, your state. And guess what? Every year you found out how good you really were. Every year someone graduates valedictorian of Acme High School, and they were the ish all during their career. Then they go off to university and realize you're just one of 400 in a class. Rankings. We have stopped ranking ourselves because we want everyone to feel good. Everyone gets an 8th place trophy, and that's unrealistic. We told everyone things that just be you and be happy and this and that, and that is not how it works for men. Men are judged upon our work and our output. Every company you work for. If you're a worker, believe this. There is an organizational chart, and every year companies go and draw a red line and they get rid of dead weight. There's a ranking. Everything is a ranking. And coming from a sales background, I had my job. I had to make my quota every month, month in, month out. Every month I was at a 0. So it starts that way of realizing that you're only as good as your last close. And see, that's for some people, they would think that's burnout. For me, that's exciting, because the worst thing I could feel like being is a fake. Oh, you look good, but can you perform? Okay. So, and what you'll find about competitive men is they'll be competitive in a lot of different areas. You know, Michael Jordan would talk about how he was competitive in golf and all other kind of things. If you know a competitive person, they're competitive on video games, chess, you know, martial arts, work, such and so forth, and it's all because they are trying to push themselves to become something greater than they were yesterday.
So. No, and I think the beauty of the ranking is, I've always said it's okay not to be okay, but it's not okay to say that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So there's this idea where, like, there's people right now who don't want to face the reality of where they're at.
Yes.
They don't want to face the reality of, okay, maybe you're overweight.
Mm-hmm.
They want to face the reality of maybe you don't have a high position in your job, you're not respected.
Mm-hmm.
So they want to be oblivious to that. But if you don't know where you're at, right, then you don't know the steps to work
Right.
to improve to where you need to be. And so I feel as though one of the things that you're trying to do is you're not trying to shame people,
Mm-hmm.
you're not trying to, harass people or just make fun of people. You just want people to understand this is where you're at now, so that you can know where you need to go in the future.
Well, as an image consultant, I'm a consultant and a eye mage. I mean, I work almost like a physician. Your oncologist can have the nicest bedside manner, but if you have stage 4 leukemia, he has to tell you what you have. See, I'm an image consultant, but I've always done something. I don't know if you ever taken spin class. You know what spin class is? I'm a cyclist. I used to teach spin class, and I would say, okay, crank it up to 10. We're climbing this hill, and I could tell when people, they would sit down there and look like they're turned up, but I can see you're bobbling on the seat. I'm like, your tension's not turned up, and I say, you know what? You don't have to. Remember this. You got to see you nigga getting out of the shower. You know what? I would hear, and I see people turn down and crank it down, and I'd start to see them work, and see what people start. Here's the thing: when we do work to get better, we feel better about ourselves. You may go to bed tired, you may be aching, but if you've ever worked hard at something and felt and been happy with the work you put in, you sleep good. See, what I'm trying to get people to do is avoid regret. And if you've never spent any time with elderly people, one of the things you realize is towards the end of life, people don't talk about all the money, all of this, all of that. They talk about the things they regret not doing. I regret not taking this shot, moving here, talking to this woman, taking that. I'm like, you know what? Just have no regrets. And complacency, being just happy with this. If you're really not truly happy with it, you're gonna set yourself up for a lot of regret.
I really enjoy that part because complacency is something that's big. And the one thing that I realized is that I think it comes from a lack of masculine energy and a masculine presence in a lot of people's lives. So when you think about it, no disrespect to mothers, moms have doing an amazing job. You know, they always say the best they could with the tools that they had. But what happens is mom usually will baby you.
Yes.
Mom would usually tell you what you want to hear. Mom probably just want to hurt your feelings. Mom probably would say, well, it's okay, Billy, you got 9th place, but you're a winner in my eyes. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like mom will get that.
Right.
And that is that harsh truth. That is that objective taking the one that you don't want to hear in the moment that doesn't feel good, but it's what you do need to hear.
Right.
Because if you don't know that 9th place isn't good, then you're going to be complacent, just settle for 9th place your whole life.
Right. And see, 80% of the black community, unfortunately, is born to single mothers. So I'm a product of a single mother. But the thing I had going for me is an old school grandfather and an old school uncle. And I grew up in a very Cosby-esque school, but I lived in the hood. So I lived in the hood, but I saw how the middle class Cosby folks live. And what I saw is I saw men at every level. See, at the school I went to, the people you went to first grade with were the same people you graduated high school with. 77 people. I got a lot of extended cousins from Millwood High School. There you go. And the thing is, my 3rd grade teacher was a man. My 6th grade teacher was a man. Throughout my high school, I had half my teachers were men. The principal was a man. The superintendent was a man. And I saw men in power positions. So even though I didn't have a dad at home, I had male expectations. And the thing I had to work the most of is getting that female energy up out of myself because I didn't have dad there. And that was a hard pill to swallow, man. It was a hard pill to swallow because the world is competitive. Because mom, like you said, wants to make you feel good. Dad has to make sure you're not a hunt.
We know that Tobirama created numerous jutsus, and most of them were intended to entertain his Uchiha audience. Now imagine creating a genjutsu to trap the Uchihas in it, giving them a dose of their own medicine. That's exactly what he did. Tobirama created an A-ranked jutsu called the Bringer of Darkness technique, which has only been used by Hashirama and Tobirama so far. This genjutsu places a veil over the target's eyesight, making them feel as if they are at the bottom of a very deep hole. Tobirama used it on Hiruzen when they were reanimated by Orochimaru for the first time. time. However, Hiruzen, being a veteran, could still sense their presence through smell and effectively counteract their attacks. The Uchiha eyes are useless if they can't make eye contact with you. With this genjutsu, the caster has full control over the target. Even if the darkness covers both of them, the Uchihas would still be visible through their glimmering red eyes, making them sitting ducks ready to be eliminated. However, if you encounter a sensory type, it might not work for long. It also troubled Hiruzen a lot, and he was able to break through it only when he started to pull their souls away. We know that Tobirama created numerous jutsus, and most of them were intended to
like you said, wants to make you feel good. Dad has to make sure you know how to hunt, you know how to fish, you can build a shelter, you know how to get water, you know how to protect yourself. Okay, you can survive in the wild on your own. That is a father's responsibility, your survival. Mom's responsibility is your nurturing. And today, sadly, I don't know if you, I'm going a little geek right here, but if you watch like dystopian kind of stuff, Book of Eli, Walking Dead, what happens when the world shuts down? Who tends to get out of here the first? The people who have no actual get up and go and survival skills. And that's the thing. And I present an interesting mix because people see the suit and the white collar guy, but I believe in being a gentleman warrior. I've had 3 black belts. I've been a bouncer at a nightclub. I got a really interesting life, dude. But the thing is, man, but there was a time where the educated or elite or whatever, you had to go to school, but you also had to become a pugilist, boxer or whatever. Man, we used to have to do stuff. I mean, I rode over here today, but imagine back in the day, one of our biggest things was, how would we get this water? We wanted to eat, we had to plant it or kill it. All right, man, I hate not being able to take care of myself, man. And that whole thing about having a father there, a lot of guys are looking for it. It was one of my most seen videos, things your father should have taught you. It got me calls, comments from people I never knew were watching my content, but it's something that we need right now, and it's resonating with especially a lot of younger guys because they're needing that. So I'm glad glad it's out there.
Yeah, no, that's a very similar thing I told AMS when he was here. I was saying that what the ABCs that are commonplace to you and I, like I said, by God's grace, I had an amazing father. So you have great mentors in your life to be able to guide you and move you in the right path. For a lot of people, that's like trigonometry. That's that, and so things that were like, well, here's this basic thing about, how to shave or how to tie a tie, or what kind of fragrance to get. Like, these are like, wow, mind-blowing things. Like I said, a lot of men did not have that father figure in their life to be able to tell them what they needed to do to be able to live a life that they want.
Right.
So going back to that point, living a life that they want, I think you made a reference to the idea of because of the social media era, everybody wants that flashy life. Everybody wants a Ferrari, the Lamborghini, the rate. Everybody wants a beautiful woman in their arm. Everybody wants, the 1% life, but not willing to do the 1% work. And so my question to you is, why do you feel as though a lot of men want that life so badly from your personal experience?
They want... Well, several reasons. One, they want what they think that life will bring them. We want acceptance. I mean, we're social creatures. We want acceptance from the group, whether it's men or women. But here's the thing. Most people don't ask themselves, why do you want something? As a corporate salesperson, I mean, I have millions of dollars worth of training in me. Dale Carnegie, Zig Ziglar, DEI, Sandler, and the list goes on. I work with some major organizations where training would be either 6 weeks, as much as 9 months before you hit the field. And you have to become learning how to ask great questions. If you notice on my show, I ask pretty good questions. I'm always trying to find the why. So somebody says, oh yeah, I want to have X amount of money. Why? Well, because I want it. Why? And then I get them to ask themselves, almost like as a consultant, get them to go through the process to realize, well, then why do you want that? And why do you want that? And it's usually something out, and when it really gets down to it, they realize that, you know what? I really didn't want that. I really wanted this. I didn't want the car. I just wanted friends. I wanted people who to call on me or check on me or, okay, well, because if you go get the car, because here's what people often misunderstand is people who have more than us, who are still unhappy. They're like, I don't understand. Why would you get a divorce and get $100 million? Well, why would you get a divorce? Why would you do that? You got 50 million. I'm like, yeah, the happiest people are the people that know why they're doing what they're doing and they like it. Start with why. Simon.
Start with why, guys. I love that.
There it is.
And so, man, I think one thing that I've noticed is a lot of guys go into your channel for the women. They want, they're, like I said, going back to Instagram generation, they see it, they want it, they like it, And so a lot of men want this type of woman, on their arm for validation, for whatever reason, but they want it.
Yeah.
And one of the harsh realities that you give a lot of these men is that the same way you have these physical standards for the women, she has financial, charisma. Would you say the characteristics they are looking for in a man from your personal experience?
Well, one of the first things I don't do is I don't judge why a person wants what they want. If women say they want a man who's 6 feet tall, 6 feet, okay, that's what you want, you just want. And same thing with a man. If that's what you want, that's what you want. But let's say the typical attractive woman, what is she wanting? Well, her beauty is currency. She wants a good deal. So the basic line I've kind of given guys, however much her beauty's worth, that's how much she's looking for on the dollar sign. So you can understand I don't use sevens in my system.
Adjustable sixes.
But 8s, 9s, and 10s, those are the women that get, I use the old school standard. Pam Grier, but that would be Beyonce today. Kelly Rowland, that would be somewhere around the line of Diane Carroll, and then Halle Berry, 90s, that would be, it's hard to find a 10 these days. See, those kind of women have men with resources. There's always going to be more resources. And I asked the guy, why do you want her more than anything else? And what these guys tend to want is they want her for acceptance. But here's the thing. I don't have a problem with hypergamy. Understand something. Women want you to be able to pay the bills. All of them. One of my most insightful questions I ask women, do you want to have to pay substantial bills after you're pregnant? And out of the 6 months of asking that question, I've had 2 women say, I don't mind.